The Splatoon series has had its fair share of excellent patches, like 2.7 in Splatoon 1 or 3.1 in Splatoon 3, both doing an excellent job of helping so many weaker options get better. However, patches are also responsible for some of the worst outcomes of the game. The end of Splatoon 1 over-nerfed pretty much all of its top-tier weapons, Splatoon 2 over-buffed things like Stingray having outside beams which would haunt it for its entire lifespan, and also had a history of over-nerfing its top tiers. Meanwhile, Splatoon 3 took forever to fix its problems. Remember how long crab meta lasted for some reason? And Splash never got to 10. While the balancing in Splatoon 3 has overall gotten a lot better, and the meta we're in is pretty good overall, today I want to talk about some of the biggest problems with Splatoon 3's balancing and what I'd want to see adjusted. Let's take a look back in this past year and review its biggest problems. Subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get started. First up is the new special balance trend. Just make it bigger. We have had a radius size increase or damage increase to the majority of specials in the game at this point, which is pretty ridiculous to think about. And while sometimes these can be positive, it's a nice way to balance specials since it makes it much more likely to be a combo tool by teammates and be quite reliable. Which is nice, but it has some downsides too. For example, Reef Slider, Ink Vacuum, and Tri-Strike are all now zones cheese. They all have the ability to cap some of the smaller zones, which while they don't break the mode by any means, it's not exactly a very positive addition either. Even that isn't the worst example though. Inkjet had its 50 damage blast radius buffed by 43%. That is a ridiculous percentage for a 2-shot, and that alongside another impactful buff shot Inkjet up from low tier to best special in the game when it happened. Eventually, and I do mean eventually, it took a few months, the devs toned it back by 15% and the special's in a good spot. But really, 43% probably shouldn't have happened in the first place. And then after that, we made Zuka's 40 damage hitbox, a size even better than pre-patch Inkjet by the way, into a 60 damage radius, which now 2-shots. So now Trizuka has an even bigger 2-shot radius. And it's once again one of, if not the best specials in the game. Trizuka's feels a lot worse for the game for a variety of reasons, but really we gotta be careful about having this problem over and over again. Generally, I think this radius size buff hasn't mattered as much when it's to things that aren't a 2-shot. It didn't overtune Ultra Stamp or Zipcaster or Super Chump, for example. And even Reef Slider and Inkvac's negative effects are at least limited to one mode. But when it's influencing hitboxes that have a probability of 2-shotting, especially specials you can aim, we may want to start setting a size limit on that. Because Trizuka's right now is too much, and hopefully we don't have to deal with another special that's being buffed to being too large of a radius. Up next is the sub-weapon balance. I've done a whole video on this, so I don't want to talk too long about it. But man, the way they buff Sprinkler is so funny. They looked at it like, yeah, okay, Sprinkler's doing pretty good right now, but I think we just want a little bit more usage rate. Let's move it from like the A tier to S tier. Meanwhile, Sprinkler's like actually down in C tier, and very few weapons, except for those with a lot of range, actually even care about it. And it's like actively hampering almost every kit it's on. And Sprinkler's the good news, by the way. Toxic Mist has gone nothing. They're trying with Dart. It's getting a radius size increase. Yeah, we like that pattern here too. And a damage increase. Twice. Yeah, the utility subs are neglected a bit. The only positive I can say is at least Last Ditch Effort finally got nerfed like 3 to 4 years later than it should have been, which has made the gap a little smaller, but seriously, considering how much more bombs do, utility subs really should get a bit more. I think Beacons and Wall are pretty good, and Sensor works for a surprising bit of weapons, but seriously, if we're gonna start putting Sprinkler on everything, then we better make Sprinkler a sub that everything actually wants. Next up is the biggest problem on this list. Remember how I just said they treat Sprinkler like it's already a high tier weapon? Yeah, that extends to the larger problem, how we buff low tiers. Dynamo is the best example of this, a weapon struggling in the low tier, with a vertical flick that does practically nothing, a horizontal flick with inconsistent pain and mediocre damage at best. So they gave it 10 frames less white ink. I mean, okay, like that's a positive change, but like the weapon's like way down here, you know, like it has the best special in the game on its kit and nobody's picking it. In general, low tier weapons do not really get the proper buffs they deserve, and to me it just makes patches a little bit boring sometimes. I mean, yeah, we don't want to overbuff stuff, but I miss when patches would do some really interesting stuff. There's been very few changes that make me go, wow, I really want to try out this weapon. For a Splatoon 3 specific example, when they buffed Wiper to be able to have enough paint to be able to swim with just a normal horizontal slash. That was a super cool buff that basically made Wiper way more mobile than it already was. It became a super fun weapon to play because all of a sudden you're skating around the map and moving in ways you never could before.
Yeah, wait.
Wait! But Splatoon 3 rarely does that. So many low-tier weapons would love a change like that to get people to try them out, but instead they're just getting small, little, tiny buffs, which don't really do anything to change their position. Personally, I'm hoping that buffs are a bit more impactful, something a more casual player could look at and go, oh wow, this might be fun to try out, and that would make it much more impactful in competitive play as well. Patches don't have to be a thing for competitive-only players. I think making Squiffer be able to jump and charge full speed in the air was something that was exciting regardless of your skill level, and I'd like to see more changes aimed like that for those weaker weapons. Before we get to my hot take, let's talk about the obvious one, the patch cycle. Currently, we get a balance patch about every month and a half. Now, if they do this, I think we need a bit more with each patch. Personally, I like this output of patches. I think patching the game every 2 or 3 weeks is a bit hasty. You might change something before it's developed too much, and that might lead to more negative repercussions. And it's also good to keep players from, oh, it's okay, the patch will fix this and we don't have to do anything to develop counterplay. However, they're doing these patches like they happen every 2 weeks. I mean, look at the recent 5.0 patch. Yeah, the game's in a pretty good spot, but like, really? That's it? 3 main weapon changes only? Like, we couldn't do at least a little bit more if this is gonna happen this infrequently? There's just not enough changes for them to be as big an impact as they could, and while these are slowly making the game better, patches don't last forever. Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1 eventually had them stop. And at the pace we're going at, there's a lot of stuff that's not gonna be fixed at the rate they're going. Finally, let me give you my most controversial opinion. If you asked me what weapons that I want to see buffed, I would go, yeah, I want to see patches that buff the Range Blaster, the Dualies and Dualie Squelchers and Tetra Dualies, the Brella, the Heavy Edit, the Sloshing Machine, the Squiffer, the Bamboozler. And if you look at any ranking, you might go, wait a second, but these are a bunch of higher tier weapons. Why do you want buffs to them? They're totally viable right now. Well, to me, I think that weapons that require a lot of dedication, that are something that people more one-trick or commit to, should be very rewarding. Take a look at Splatana Stamper and top tweets about it from players like Fuzzy or Jared. This weapon is so good that people believe it could be top 5 when played optimally, but there's still not that many Stampers because it's a difficult weapon, especially at the highest level. You have to dedicate a lot of time and get really good at it. Weapons like Stamper and Sorella 10 and Firefin Charger are very rewarding to get good at. They feel like you have an insane amount of tools at your disposal when you get really good at them. While stuff like Range Blaster and Dualie Squelchers are good enough to win tournaments, to me, for the difficulty and dedication these weapons provide, you should be able to do a bit more. Especially since these are a lot of the more unique weapons in the game. Like, Dualie Squelchers is a great example of this with its unique slides. I think the insane movement the weapon provides should allow players at the highest skill level to do a bit more than they're able to do. Especially for some of the harder or more unique weapons, that's just my opinion. I can understand that people might be fine with it in a spot that's good enough to win, but to me, I think players like that should be rewarded a bit more. I want to see Dualie Squelchers making a bit more insane plays than they're able to right now. These don't have to be major buffs, but maybe a bit smaller ones. Maybe give Dualie Squelchers a bit less shot spread and a bit better shot velocity. These are small things, but it slightly alleviates its problem of inconsistent killing. It only bumps it up like a tier or so, but that means that really good Dualie Squelcher players are going to be able to do a lot more. Personally, I just want to see more reward for players who stick to very specific difficult weapons. But yeah, that's my opinion on Splatoon 3's patches. Let me know what you think about these issues in the comments below, and what do you like about these balance patches. I'll see you guys next time.